Story 1. We were halfway through the second period when the intercom crackled. Everyone in Mr. Thomas's class barely looked up. Lockdown drills had become as common as fire alarms by then. We'd had 3 that semester already. They always happened around the same time, and we always treated them like a break. Get under the desk. Be quiet for 10 minutes. Scroll through your phone until it's over. But this time was different. The intercom made a weird sound, not just static, a stutter. Then a voice, rushed and clipped, started to say, "Lock." And just like that, it cut out. No full sentence, no protocol, just the first syllable and dead silence. At first, we laughed. Someone joked that the janitor must have tripped over a cord again. But then Mr. Thomas stood up slowly. He walked to the door and locked it without saying anything. His hand was shaking. I've never seen that before. Not from him. He looked at us and said, "Phone's off. Now. Just do it." That's when the room started to shift. Not physically, but emotionally. You could feel it. That drop in the air pressure is when something's about to go wrong. The school was too quiet. You don't realize how much background noise a building full of teenagers makes until it's gone. No classroom chatter. No footsteps. No announcements. Just the ticking of the old wall clock and our breathing. Mr. Thomas motioned for us to move to the corner of the room, away from the windows and the door. No one spoke. Even Kyle, the guy who never took anything seriously, didn't crack a joke. That's when the hallway lights flickered and died. Not the classroom lights, just the hall. We could see the darkness bleed in through the glass sliver of the door. I was closest to it. I remember watching the light disappear like someone poured ink into the corridor. We sat there, knees pulled to our chests, trying not to move, trying not to think. But you always think. You think about every horror story you've ever read, every what-if scenario you brushed off, every time you said, "That would never happen here." Then someone walked by the door. At least, we think it was someone. No footsteps, just movement. A shape that broke the little light left coming from the emergency exit sign at the far end of the hall. They moved slowly, deliberately. Not a teacher, not security. We could feel that. It wasn't just the way they walked. It was the way they didn't. No swaying, no bounce, just a glide. I leaned forward just slightly and I saw the door handle twitch. Once, twice, like someone testing it gently, almost politely. Then it stopped. No one moved for several minutes. Then we heard it. Breathing. Not our own. Not inside the room. Right outside the door. Low, wet, almost animal. Too close. Too real. We all held our breath instinctively, as if even the sound of our lungs might give us away. And then it moved again. The breathing drifted away, soft and slow, as if whatever was outside had decided to move on. But none of us moved. Not for a long time, because that sound.it didn't belong in a hallway. We stayed pressed in the corner for what felt like an hour, though it was probably closer to 15 minutes. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Mr. Thomas sat by the door, holding a heavy metal ruler, as if it was going to help him fight off whatever that thing was. The hallway stayed dark. Not dim, not flickering, just completely black, like the bulbs had been swallowed by something that didn't want them working anymore. Then Kayla started crying. It wasn't loud, just a soft shaking sound, like someone trying to hold their breath underwater. I was sitting next to her. I touched her arm gently, just to let her know I was there. That's when she leaned in and whispered, "I saw it." Her voice was barely there. It looked in the window. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she didn't look at me. She just stared at the sliver of glass on the classroom door. "Its face was wrong," she said. "It didn't have eyes, just holes, big, open holes." And it smiled at me. I didn't believe her. I didn't want to believe her. But something in her voice, it wasn't the voice of someone exaggerating. It was the voice of someone remembering. That's different. I kept staring at the door after that, expecting something to reappear in that little vertical window, but nothing did. Not yet. Then came the tapping. It started softly, like a pencil hitting a locker, but it didn't stop. It moved down the hall. Tap, 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 each tap echoing like it was closer than it should have been. There were no footsteps, no breathing now, just that steady, unnatural tapping, like someone or something dragging a single finger across metal as they moved past each locker. Mr. Thomas pulled his phone out, trying to check for service, but there was none. No bars, no Wi-Fi, nothing. He tried calling the office landline on the class phone. Dead tone. We were cut off. Then the tapping stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. Then, suddenly, the intercom clicked on. For a second, all we heard was static. Then a voice. Warped. Layered. Like multiple people speaking at once. Said just one word. Run. And the line went dead again. No one moved. We were frozen, trying to make sense of what we just heard. Run? Run where? The hallway was pitch black. The doors were locked. The windows had metal screens. And whatever was out there had already tried the handle once. A minute later, we heard footsteps in the hallway. Real ones this time. Fast. Heavy. And a voice. Normal. Human. Calling, "This is Officer Daniels. Is anyone in there?" We didn't believe it at first. Mr. Thomas hesitated. But the voice came again, and then a bright flashlight beam cut through the window. Mr. Thomas unlocked the door, slowly. The hallway lights flickered back on as the officer stepped in, followed by 3 others. Guns drawn, faces pale. They swept the hall. Every room, every corner. They found nothing. Nothing but a pair of shoes, just outside the gym doors. Kids' shoes. One untied. Both were soaked in something that wasn't water. They asked if anyone had left the room. We said no. We were all there, but the shoes didn't belong to any of us. Later, they pulled the security footage to figure out what happened. Cameras worked fine in most of the building. Cafeteria, lobby, even the courtyard. But the hallway outside our classroom? The feed was black for exactly 13 minutes. Just that section. Just that window, like something had erased itself from the recording. Like it didn't want to be remembered. They told us it might have been a power surge. A coincidence. A prank even. That's what they always say. But I know what I heard. We all do. And every time I walk into a room and it goes too quiet, I remember that breathing, that low, thick sound right outside the door. And I hold my breath because we were taught to stay quiet during a lockdown. But what if it wasn't human? Story 2. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind where you don't expect anything to happen. Just another slow crawl through first period history. Our regular teacher, Mr. Halberd, was out with the flu, so the school brought in a substitute. She walked in just before the bell. We all went quiet. She wasn't what we were used to. Tall, older, maybe early 60s, with straight black hair that looked dyed too dark for her pale skin. She didn't say much, just wrote her name on the board. Mrs. Dolan. No smile, no greeting, no roll call. She pulled the blinds closed as soon as the last student sat down. Every window, one by one. Then she turned off the lights. We sat in the semi-dark, with just the humming fluorescent glow above the whiteboard. Someone snickered. She didn't react. She just walked to the door, locked it with a loud click, turned to us slowly, and said in a voice I'll never forget, "Everyone, get under your desks, now." We froze. There had been no intercom announcement. No sound from the hallway, no siren, no drill. Just her voice, calm but final. Some of us looked at each other, confused. One guy asked if this was a drill. She didn't answer, just stared. Cold, hard, daring someone to disobey. One by one, we slid beneath our desks. Quiet, unsure, weirded out more than scared. But she stayed standing, facing the door, whispering to herself. Not words, just sounds. Low and strange. Not like she was praying. Like she was repeating something she'd heard 1,000 times but never understood. I pulled out my phone to text my mom, but I had no signal. Not just bad reception. Zero service. The little no bars icon stared back at me. I looked around. Everyone else was seeing the same thing. Jason, the class clown, whispered that this was messed up. Said he was gonna leave. Said this wasn't normal. He got up and started toward the door. Mrs. Dallin moved like lightning. 1 second, she was still. The next, she was in front of him. Her hand wrapped around his wrist so tight his knuckles went white. And her voice changed. It dropped into something broken, like a static-filled recording. "He'll see you," she hissed. "He's looking for motion." Jason backed off, sat her down, didn't say another word. We stayed under our desks for what felt like forever. No sound from the hallway, no announcements, no bells. Just her pacing in circles, whispering in that broken down voice. Occasionally she'd mutter names, none of them ours. That's when someone outside the room knocked. Not a loud knock, just 2 soft raps. Then silence. Mrs. Dallin flinched. Not like a teacher, like prey. She crouched low, stared at the crack under the door, then said in a flat tone, "Do not breathe. Do not speak." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then she started humming, just humming. And somehow, that was the scariest part. The knock never came again. After those 2 soft taps, the hallway went silent, like the entire building had taken one long, uneasy breath and held it. The substitute kept humming. Her voice didn't sound like it belonged to someone in their 60s anymore. It sounded deeper, hollow, like it came from behind her teeth instead of her throat. We didn't move, not even the restless ones. You could feel it. Something on the other side of that door wasn't just waiting, it was listening. Then the intercom finally crackled back to life, but it didn't start with a lockdown announcement. It started with static, long and broken. Then a voice, familiar, panicked. "This is Principal Alder. Teachers, initiate full lockdown. Unknown individual on campus. Repeat, lockdown now." The substitute stopped humming. Her head twitched. Not turned, twitched, like a glitch in an old tape. Then she stood up slowly and walked to the back wall. She pressed both hands flat against it and whispered something we couldn't hear. That's when the lights cut out. Every bulb in the room died at once. The hum disappeared. The classroom went black. I couldn't see anything. Not the desks, not my hands, not even the sliver of hallway light we'd seen earlier. It was total darkness. Someone started crying quietly. I held my breath. I was trying to convince myself this was just some bizarre, extreme drill, even though deep down I knew it wasn't. Then everything shifted. The room felt smaller. The air got colder. I could feel it on my skin. Not like a draft, like the heat had been sucked out entirely. Then, for just a moment, I heard movement. Not footsteps. Dragging. Something is being pulled across the floor. Heavy. Slow. Breathing. And then, just like that, the lights flicked back on. Bright. Sudden. But the substitute was gone. Not like she'd walked out. Not like she'd slipped away. Gone. Vanished. No door opened. No sound. Just gone. We looked around, confused. The room was exactly how it had been before. Blinds drawn, desk neat, nothing disturbed. Except one thing. The classroom door was unlocked again. Mr. Halbert always locked it when he left. We all knew that. But it was wide open now. Police showed up 5 minutes later. They swept the building, room by room. But there was no trace of Mrs. Dallin. No sign and record. No fingerprint badge. No matching name in the district database. No camera footage of her entering the building. Nothing. It was like she'd never existed. The officer who spoke to us asked what she looked like. No one gave the same description. Some said she had glasses, others said she didn't. Hair color changed depending on who answered. Even the handwriting on the board had faded by the time they checked. Just one smudged streak of chalk, like someone had erased her name half-heartedly. A few days later, someone in class posted a blurry photo they had taken when she wasn't looking. Just a quick snap under the desk. The figure in the image had no face, not blurred, just featureless, like a mannequin missing its mold. Skin stretched smooth, no eyes, no mouth. I didn't sleep that night, but what still haunts me happened weeks later. I had a dream. I was back in that classroom, alone. She was standing at the board again, writing something over and over. I got closer. It was my name, a full page of it, row after row. She turned, and even though her face was still blank, I could feel her watching me. And then I heard her voice again, clear, sharp, right behind me. I marked you. That's all it takes. Story 3. It was the last week of January when our school went into lockdown. A real one. Not a drill, not a test. Just that sudden buzz over the intercom, followed by the flat voice of the principal saying the words you never want to hear in real life. Lockdown. This is not a drill. Lock all doors immediately. You don't know how fast a room can turn cold until everyone realizes something could be happening. Right now, right outside that door. I was in the library when it happened. Miss Crowley, our librarian, moved faster than I've ever seen her. She flipped the lock on the doors, turned off the lights, and told us to stay low. No one spoke, not even the freshmen. It was one of those silences where even your heartbeat feels too loud. 20 minutes in, we still didn't know what the threat was. Rumors moved fast over texts and whispers. Someone saw a weapon. Someone saw a stranger in the parking lot. Someone saw blood in the hallway. All of it made up, or at least we thought it was. I remember staring at the tall bookshelf across from me, counting the seconds between each creak in the floor. That's how tense it was. I was counting floor sounds to stay calm. Then the announcement came. The situation is contained. Remain in lockdown until cleared. That was it. No explanation. Nothing specific. We waited another 10 minutes, and then the door finally opened. The vice principal stepped in, told us the lockdown was over, and told us everything was fine, but he didn't look fine. His face was pale, his tie was crooked, and his voice was shaking. Later that day, the real story started to leak. They'd found someone in the old janitor's closet near the west stairwell. Not a threat. A girl. A girl no one recognized. Soaked head to toe, barefoot, shivering, crouched in the corner like she'd been hiding for days. Her clothes didn't look modern. More like something from the 90s. Oversized windbreaker, long denim skirt, shoelaces tied around her wrists like she'd tried to keep her sleeves in place. No backpack. No phone. The janitor had heard something while checking the doors during lockdown. A light thumping sound was coming from the supply closet. He said he thought it was a mouse. He opened the door and found her there, screaming, not like a lost kid, like something wild, primal. She curled into the corner and begged him not to turn the lights on, begged through sobs and broken sentences. "Don't let them see me," she kept repeating. "Please don't let them see me." They took her to the nurse's office, called emergency services. But when the paramedics got there, she had gone completely silent. Saturday, there on the cot, hands folded, eyes wide, unblinking. None of the teachers knew her. She wasn't on any class roster. No one from the front office remembered checking her in. She wasn't wearing a student ID. When asked her name, she just kept whispering, "They followed the light." By the next morning, the story had already changed 3 times. Some said she was a transfer student who had a breakdown. Some said she was a runaway, but the truth was quieter, more unsettling. She had no record, not just in our school, anywhere. The name she finally gave didn't pull up any files. Not in the district, not in the county, No social media, no birth certificate, nothing. And the weirdest part was her face. Nobody recognized her. Not even the students who had supposedly been in classes with her that week. A girl named Megan swore she'd seen her in the hallway on Tuesday, but now wasn't so sure. Said she thought the girl had been wearing different clothes. Said she didn't seem to blink. Then came the footage. Someone leaked a clip from the hallway camera outside the janitor's closet. Just 30 seconds, it showed the door. Closed, undisturbed, and the timestamp. The hallway was empty. But as the seconds ticked down, the feed glitched once. Just a flash. When it cleared, the girl was in the closet. No one saw her walk in. No one saw the door open. She just appeared. That night, the building alarms went off. It was 3:27 a.m. motion detected near the west stairwell. Police responded in under 10 minutes. They found the side entrance propped open with a small rock. Inside, all the lights were on, but only in one part of the school, the old west wing, the part that had been sealed off since the boiler fire years ago. No one used it anymore. Half the doors didn't even open, but that night, they all did. At the end of the hallway, in the last janitor's closet, they found a pile of clothes, neatly folded, damp, the same windbreaker and denim skirt. No girl, just the clothes. And carved into the wall above them, deep and jagged like with a key or knife, were the words, "You let them see me." After that, things got worse. Lights in the school started flickering every night at the same time. 3:27 a.m. Security guards refused to patrol the West Wing alone. One was transferred to another school without explanation. Another started showing up late, jumpy, exhausted. He said he was hearing things on the radio, voices that weren't there. One said his own voice answered back. The girl was never seen again. No sightings, no reports, no family ever came forward. But sometimes, when it's late and the school is almost empty, you hear footsteps near that part of the building. Just one set. Slow, careful, barefoot. And every so often, the janitor's closet door is found cracked open, just a few inches. Enough for something to see out, or for something else to see in.